Officially, Russian President Vladimir Putin has two daughters, but there is also a third one, an alleged illegitimate daughter named Elizabetha. Her mother was once an ordinary cleaning lady, but her life changed completely after the birth of her daughter. For a long time, the girl hid her face and lived under different last names, but journalists eventually managed to find her. How did her life change after the publication of a journalistic investigation? How does this girl live today, and where is she now? What did she recently say about her father that shocked the public? Watch this video to the end to learn about the life of the secret daughter of the Russian leader. Let's begin. Every time the conversation turns to Vladimir Putin, the attention is focused not only on politics, but also on his personal life. His marriage to his only wife, Lyudmila, lasted almost 30 years. In this union, two daughters were born, Maria and Ekaterina. But in 2013, the couple officially announced their divorce. According to Lyudmila, family life with a man constantly occupied with state affairs became impossible. Rumors about Putin's romances followed him always. Sometimes it was interpreters, sometimes athletes, sometimes mysterious women from his close circle. The media paid special attention to gymnast Alina Kabayeva, who was often called his new companion. But no one could have imagined that in the president's life there would be a simple cleaning lady. The story of Svetlana Tsvetanachik resembles a Cinderella tale, but in this story there is an unexpected twist. How did an ordinary cleaner manage to capture Putin's attention and become one of the richest women in Russia? Svetlana was born in 1975 in a very ordinary Soviet family. She lived in St. Petersburg in a communal apartment of Soviet times, a shared flat where several families lived in different rooms using one kitchen and one bathroom. Life was not easy. Her father died early from alcoholism, leaving his wife and daughter alone. Svetlana's mother worked as a painter. It was hard and poorly paid work. Svetlana herself worked as a cleaner after school. Despite the harsh living conditions, she graduated from the University of Economics and Finance. It seemed that her fate would be like that of millions of other ordinary Russians, a struggle for survival, low income, and life in the same small room. But the late 1990s became a turning point in Svetlana's destiny. It was during this time, according to neighbors, that she gained a new, extremely influential and wealthy protector. According to journalistic investigations, it was then that she met Vladimir Putin, who at that time was rapidly rising in his career. The exact circumstances of their meeting are unknown, but journalists found evidence of their close contact. In the archives of airline booking systems, there were records showing that Kranjik and Putin repeatedly flew on the same flights. From that moment, Svetlana's modest life began to change. At first, the changes were almost invisible. More expensive clothes, new things, but soon something much bigger happened. The turning point came in 2003. In March, Svetlana gave birth to a daughter. The girl was named Elizabetha. In the birth certificate, the father line was left blank. This was a formal sign that the child was born out of wedlock and the father either did not acknowledge paternity or his identity was deliberately kept secret. However, the next line, the patronymic, spoke for itself. The girl was recorded as Elizabetha Vladimirna. In Russia, patronymics are formed from the father's first name. So the father of the child was a man named Vladimir. From that moment, Svetlana's modest life was left behind. Her wealth began to grow at a fantastic pace. She turned into one of the richest women in Russia. Her assets impressed with their scale and strategic importance. She became the owner of luxury apartments in the center of St. Petersburg, elite real estate in Moscow, Sochi, and even Monaco. Svetlana became co-owner of prestigious tourist facilities. Among them was the ski resort IA near St. Petersburg, considered a vacation spot for the Russian elite. It was there, according to rumors, that the wedding of Putin's official daughter, Ekaterina, took place. She also owned a luxury yacht worth more than $5 million and a restaurant overlooking Palace Square in St. Petersburg. But her main asset became an almost 3% stake in RIA Bank, unofficially called the Kremlin's wallet or the Bank of Putin's Friends. It was the first to face sanctions in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. At that time, Vladimir Putin publicly stated that a bank with such a symbolic name would be protected by the state. By acquiring a stake in this bank, Svetlana turned from just a wealthy woman into a multimillionaire. According to journalists' estimates, The total value of her assets exceeded $100 million. It would seem that their daughter's life should have been a fairy tale, but the reality was much harsher. Elizabetha was surrounded not only by luxury, but also by an iron curtain of secrecy. While her mother was building a financial empire and getting richer, the girl was raised by her grandmother. Lisa's childhood was quite isolated. She spent a lot of time in her grandmother's country house away from prying eyes. She did not attend kindergarten, most likely to minimize contacts and curious looks. Her parents strictly dictated the rules of her life, her circle of friends, and her interests. It was a golden cage where all the benefits of the world were combined with a complete lack of personal freedom and the right to her own life. As Elizabetha admitted in one interview, her parents insisted on professional sports. At first, they took her to ballet, figure skating, tennis, and swimming. Later she turned to creativity, as she said, to ease the control. In an attempt to gain at least some independence, Elizabetha created an alter ego. Until the age of 14, she carried her mother's last name, Krnajic. Then she changed it first to the more pleasant and neutral Rozova, and later to Radova. It was under the name Luisa Rozova that she first stepped into the public space. Running an Instagram account, she showed the life of typical golden youth. Expensive parties in Moscow and St. Petersburg clubs, fashion shows, trips on private jets, and DJ performances. Elizabetha studied at a university in the Faculty of Arts and Culture, but her life was not like that of an ordinary student. It was reported that she arrived at parties in cars with flashing lights and government plates, while the entrances to clubs were guarded by officers of the Russian Interior Ministry. But on social media, her face in photos was almost always hidden, either from the back, with an emoji, or shown only partly. The reason for such secrecy became clear when journalists found her photos. The resemblance to Vladimir Putin, especially in his youth, was striking, the same eye shape, brow line, and lips. Journalists turned to the director of the Center for Visual Analysis at the University of Bradford, Professor Hasenhüttl, who conducted a computer analysis. The results showed 70% similarity of facial features, which is considered a very high indicator. The official position of the Kremlin on all such investigations has always been the same. It is all journalists' inventions. Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, when commenting on such questions, always stated that he does not discuss the private life of the head of state and that journalists have too vivid an imagination.